Welcome to the One More Rep podcast, where we take it beyond the barbell. I am your host, Mo Dingo, and with me is my man, my dude, bro Flex.
He really overkilled that one. He owes me for about 7 or 8 episodes.
Yeah, where I just cut him off. Yeah.
But what's up, Mo? How you doing, man?
I am glorious. It's actually nice and cool up here in One More Rep podcast studios, aka the Kid Zone at CrossFit Access in Vandalia,
it's
Ohio.
a loft. We're adults.
Oh, my bad.
Okay.
But like Stu said, he'd want to kick at one of them bean bags and just chill up here.
That's what he said.
So again, you know, if you didn't listen to our last episode, we had that interview with Stu Brower of What the Fuck Gym Talk. Really good, candid conversation just about state of the fitness industry and just really good conversation overall. And
candid is being very nice. That's a good way of putting it. But what are you drinking, Mo? We got to tell the listeners.
I am drinking some cold brew from Wearhouse 4.
Wearhouse 4, what's up?
What is up? I mean, come on. We're talking about you guys like almost every other episode.
Every episode. And just because Jenna messed up our sponsorship.
Yeah. Listen to the outtakes for that.
We had it, Mo, and she screwed it up.
Yeah, we were about to put pen to paper, and boom.
32 episodes.
So it's worth of work. Yeah.
Gone.
All gone.
Because of a little road rage.
Before we get started
I seen a package. Mo walked in with a package. It looks like a shirt.
I have something from a friend of mine, a Facebook friend of mine, Pamela Tooms, who is out of San Diego.
I seen that.
We're Facebook friends. She's also a fellow hip replacement hippie, as well as a CrossFitter, and more importantly, a breast cancer survivor. So way to kick breast cancer in the ass there, Pam.
That's awesome.
And she goes to Troy CrossFit in San Diego. And give a shout out to their owners, Derek, Vinay, and Hector. And Pam was nice enough to send us some shirts, so I was able to pick them out. And we all know that bro loves the 3/4.
Oh, hell
so
yeah. It's not blue.
It's not blue. It is 3/4.
That's sick,
man. And I
man.
asked her to send that one for bro. And I just have the nice feather gray one. So huge shout out to Troy CrossFit representing SoCal. And we will proudly rock these. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. That's cool. Hey, it's our first shirt. I'm just saying, guys.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I mean, hey, you get what'd you say?
Yeah, keep sending shirts.
No, I appreciate it. You know, guys, I do wear a large. Every about 5 months, I'll shrink down to a medium.
All right, so just a few housekeeping items before we start this next episode. We're going to do a little bit different this time. We're going to do our call to action up front. So, bro, why don't you tell them what this week's call to action is?
So, this week's call to action, I thought it was pretty cool to maybe revisit one of your favorite episodes that we've recorded so far. I mean, because we're basically veterans of the podcast community, and our topics we're basically the number one podcast, CrossFit podcast out there.
Yeah, in Vandalia, Ohio.
Yeah, I just want to watch out, Fronty and friends. Your stuff sucks.
Coming for you, Rich.
Yeah, what's up? And we're basically a Matt Frazier of podcast. We're coming to take your title. And no, I thought it'd be cool to revisit one of our episodes that you would deem your favorite. Okay, there's been several people that reached out on numerous of our episodes, and maybe share that with a friend on social media and tag them that does not listen to our podcast, because we're all about that world dominance, and we're trying to really take over the world in the podcast scene.
We have to do it one listener at a time, so we need your help, guys.
Look, man, if we add one person a day for like 10 years,
that's a lot of listeners.
We'll have a freaking army, bro. You'll be like 95, but before you go, we're going to have an army of podcast
We'll
listeners.
have a legion of listeners.
That's right.
So go ahead and, like Bro said, take one of those old episodes, share it with one of your buddies, and also don't forget to tag us in that. Hashtag OMRFam, hashtag World Domination.
That hashtag OMRFam's taken off. I mean, it's filling up. It's sort of like I got a new hashtag that I got named after me. It's a hashtag pics by bro. And basically when I take Jenna's camera at events and I take pictures, people use all my photos for profile pics on social media.
Okay.
And it's pissing her off. Like, I'm serious. And so I started this tag called hashtag pics by bro. And it's actually starting to get some traction. Our members are using it, and she don't even have a hashtag for her photography business. So, and then Eric, who we have on today, I tried to undercut Jenna and get
to be his photographer.
The contract to be the photographer for his wedding. I totally lowballed it just so Jenna didn't get it. But I guess they want someone who is technically certified in photography.
Yeah, and someone's not using an iPhone.
Yeah, if it was up to me, I would have went with you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. He said that it really wasn't. He don't even really care about the quality. He just wants pictures.
Okay.
I was like, I got you, bro. I can get you some blurry stuff
all day. So with us today is Eric May. He is a licensed physical therapist, and he does some work with athletes here at CrossFit Access. But let's let him introduce himself. So Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I have been out of school now for about 5 years. So I've been a PT for 5 years, and I started out in the normal insurance realm and then realized that I loved lifting weights and I wanted to work with other people that like lifting weights.
Okay.
So I kind of went more towards the CrossFit community and started doing my own thing. And so now that's my main focus.
So originally it was more like the rehabilitative type physical therapy?
Yeah, your typical outpatient where you're seeing nothing. There's nothing wrong with treating 70-year-old knee replacements, but just not for me.
Or hip replacement in most cases.
Yeah, in my case, hip replacements, yeah. And so you have a practice here locally, or where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm out of Vandalia, Troy region. Okay. So I don't really have a set up shop type place.
Traditional brick and mortar.
Well, he's basically like nowhere in particular. He's a nomad.
He's a nomad
PT.
My car looks like I'm homeless. So.
He's not. He can live here. We got the loft.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a little warm.
But he's gonna have to fight Jenna though.
Yeah, Jenna, you're evicted.
She's gonna have to move to a beanbag.
Eric's so much cooler.
And tell us a little about your fitness background.
So I've always been more into powerlifting. I played baseball in college. Actually, I played baseball because I hated running sports. So I wanted something you could run 90 feet and then take a
90
break.
feet at a time.
That's true. I actually quit basketball because we had to run so much. So I went into powerlifting where you can do 3 reps and then take a 5-minute rest break.
Yeah, have a donut.
So,
bring your heart rate down.
Yeah, it's
get those carbs in between lifts.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I've always been more into powerlifting.
Awesome. So today, the reason why we have Eric here is we want to give you the opportunity to ask a PT, ask a physical therapist, like what's going on, what's down, what can you do to make yourself better, what can you do to rehab yourself, and also a lot of the things that people don't think about, which we mentioned in the mobility episode, is the preventative aspect of utilizing a PT.
Yeah, so, even though you guys can't ask them, we're going to ask them.
We're going to ask them.
Yeah. We're asking them.
We're asking for you. So as a PT, what are your thoughts on CrossFit? You said you're a power lifter. Okay. So CrossFit specifically, because that's kind of what the show is centralized around. Well, what's your feelings on CrossFit?
As it relates to like injury?
No, just anything.
Or just in general? I think it's one of the biggest, I would say, movements in the past however many years. I think it's been awesome. It's gotten like the Olympic lifts a lot more recognized and just it's gotten people that were previously thinking I can't do stuff related to fitness now into fitness and then serious about it, which is good for all ages of life. So as far as injuries go, I think it's gotten a bad name, but we can talk on that.
Okay.
Inappropriately bad name.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, and give a little background. He just moved down south he was up north at Medina.
Yep.
And he was inside of an actual CrossFit gym where he worked with their members.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I guess, where he kind of got attracted to working with athletes, which in my opinion, if I say I went back to school for PT, I'd be like 95 when I graduated, basically Mo's age. And, but that's what I would want to get into because I think that's pretty cool that I think as much as CrossFit has helped Olympic weightlifting, I think treatment-wise, it's opened doors for chiropractic and PT and massage therapists as well because people put copious amounts of work into themselves, okay, as far as getting fit, but along that process,
the rehab portion, we're horrible at that.
Right. And if you look at the maintenance from back when games first started to now, what athletes do on a weekly
For
basis
recovery,
for
yeah.
recovery and preventative things and stability things, I think it's also opened that door to. I mean, I'm seeing more PTs involved in CrossFit now than I had ever 5 years ago. That's for sure. Not saying they're doing it, but they're part of the community per se.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where he came from, where it was up north. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so started out and just went at just kind of the same approach. I was looking for CrossFit athletes to work with. So the funny thing is you tell people you work with CrossFit athletes, and the first thing they say is, oh, because they get injured all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, or because they bust their ass, and if I have them do things for rehab, they actually do it. So it's an interesting concept.
Really?
If I
That's
had to do
interesting.
something- Yeah, so
So we're more compliant, you feel?
yeah.
Really?
So yeah, how about that?
Yeah. Interesting.
So, and obviously that's a huge part of it is what, not just what I can do for you, but the knowledge I can give you to then do things on your own. So yeah, up north, I kind of started that process and I wasn't sure how it would go.
Mm-hmm.
So just as you start any business, let's see how it goes. And it just kind of took off a little bit.
Is there any reason why you particularly wanted to target CrossFitters? Because you're not a CrossFitter, right?
No. I would actually, honestly, the powerlifting community would be good, but CrossFit is just a lot more prevalent.
Okay.
So it's just easier to get access to those people.
Just a numbers game.
Yeah, like if you were to say, hey, where's the nearest powerlifting gym? I'd be like, I have no idea.
Dirty
So
Gym
there's
is
just-
the only thing that comes
yeah,
to mind, really.
Dayton.
Yeah.
So yeah, CrossFit, there's just, it's a lot more.
Shout out to Drake Von Lichtenstein.
What?
And so in terms of, you've been doing this for 5 years. In terms of serious injuries as it relates to athletes, what kind of things do you normally see? Whether it be powerlifters or just any other type of athlete versus your normal, like you said, insurance work.
Serious would really be none.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of your serious. I mean, even if you want to go like, hey, I tore my ACL, more serious.
Mhm.
I've never seen a CrossFit athlete. Not that it doesn't happen.
Mhm.
I've never seen a CrossFit athlete with an ACL tear. High school football players, yeah.
Okay.
But as far as serious accidents go or injuries, you've never seen any. It's typically more of an overuse or like a movement pattern dysfunction
Mhm.
or something that they just kind of over a period of time get injured. It's more of a chronic thing as
Okay.
opposed to like an acute, like
A specific
fast acting
accident or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've never seen anybody that just completely like their back is just gone. It's more like, hey, over time my back started to get sore, then it's whatever it is,
Mhm.
and then you just need to correct movement patterns, mobility, whatever it is. So I mean, yeah, it's not like people are coming in from CrossFit community like just destroyed. Like
okay.
yeah, like a huge injury.
Well, and this is one of the misconceptions is, let's say, I'll give you an example. Our trainer, Evan, he had to have his knee replaced.
Mhm.
He's young to get his knee replaced. And
He got up pretty mobile pretty quick after his surgery too.
yeah, but so he had posted a picture on social media, and he's not like big into social media.
Mhm.
And one of the very first questions, like, did you do that at CrossFit?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I did something. I have my complete knee replacement at CrossFit. I was squatting and
I went in, I
my
did some
knee
double
shot out.
unders, boom, I needed a
Yeah.
knee replacement.
And this is what happens. If you do CrossFit and people that you know that don't do CrossFit and you get injured, they think it's from CrossFit. When
Mhm.
99% of the time it's from something outside of CrossFit.
Mhm.
It's like it's the weirdest stuff. Bending over to pick something up or tripping and falling because you drank too much. I don't know. Like there's so many other ways you can injure yourself, but it's always instantly referred to CrossFit.
Yeah, you know how many rotator cuff repairs, knee replacements I've seen from CrossFit in the insurance model in 3 years? Zero. It's zero. Yeah,
Okay.
it is. So I mean,
So
obviously they may be out there, but the majority is you're right. They're not there.
are there any other sports or types of activities that you tend to see more injuries as a result of?
I mean, if you want to go like research based, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, and CrossFit actually have some of the lowest injury rates in the population of sporting events.
Do you
It's just
have
they
any
get-
opinion on why that is?
I just feel like I don't even know.
Well, it could be a numbers game once again. I think
Okay,
obviously
fair.
there's
That's
less
fair.
CrossFitters than there are high school football players
Okay.
or collegiate athletes, I would say,
Yeah.
across the world. But I think something that you might be able to tie into is if you look at weightlifting, we talked about weightlifters spend just as much time
Mobilizing.
becoming flexible as they do actually lifting. So they put the same amount of work in because it's critical to their sport.
Mhm.
And during the mobility episode, we talked about people don't want to invest the time into it, but they want it, right?
Mhm.
Well, they invest the time into it. Now, in all honesty, weightlifters are notorious for becoming injured, but that's part of the sport when you're working between that 70 and 85% of your max every
on a
single
routine
day.
basis.
Yeah.
And that goes that threshold principle that
Yeah.
you talked about where, if you're at that advanced level, you got to run that fine line where overtraining and not training enough.
Yep. You don't train enough. You don't. Your numbers don't improve. You don't get confident at your numbers you need to hit at nationals or worlds or whatever. And then if you train too much, you become injured. But it's a sport. It's part of the game. And I think I hate that about CrossFit is we train every day, and sometimes you do get nicked up. Like my shoulder, just something weird happened.
Well, like I told you about my hamstring last night, just something funky.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But then you get these high school, college athletes, these gymnasts, any other sport, and they get injured, and it's like, oh, it's just part of the sport. I'm like, look, what are we? Like, people hate CrossFit, or not people. A lot of people hate CrossFit, and they don't know why they hate it, but they'll take any opportunity to
take a dig. Yeah.
Like he said, to take a, people, there's a misconception on injury stemming from CrossFit.
And I think it's like anything else. Even as it relates to PTs, you could say, well, I went to a PT and they sucked. Well, yeah, maybe you went to that one, but not all. Just like CrossFit, you may
across the spectrum.
You may find one that it isn't the best, it isn't the most well coached, but you can't have that blanket comment then that they all suck.
Which we've talked about is you can go to a doctor and you're not as impressed with them as far it's any profession. You're not always going to have the best in that profession. CrossFit's definitely the same way.
Agreed, and especially since we're so, for lack of a better term, unregulated. The variability, I mean, it has to exist.
Yep.
Now, in your professional opinion, is CrossFit dangerous?
No, I think, and I'll always say this, no exercise is inherently dangerous. It's either how you perform it or you're not mobile enough for it. But that's like saying, you could say, well, I hurt myself on a power clean. Power cleans are dangerous for me. Well, no, they're not. They're not for 99% of the other population. It's just how you performed it or you weren't ready for it or whatever it is.
So when you say perform, you're talking about like mechanics?
Yeah, mechanics of it, you aren't, or you, yeah.
And you can say deadlift is probably one of the most prevalent things that people say they become injured on is like, I'm not going to deadlift because I hurt my back. Well, did you hurt your back because you deadlifted or did you hurt your back because you deadlifted
poor technique
improperly?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
Oh yeah. Go try to lift a couch, and if you do it incorrectly, then you could say, "Well, lifting a couch." Like,
well, hell, groceries. You know?
Yeah. So,
like a buddy of mine, he slipped a disc. He was getting out of his doctor's chair. He sat up and twisted, and boom.
Damn doctors, Mo. I'm telling you.
So yeah, no exercise is inherently dangerous. That's why I just hate the comment of like, "Oh, you're doing CrossFit. Yeah, you shouldn't do that." Well, I feel like that's a bit over the top.
Yeah, then you shouldn't cross the street either.
Yeah, it's like driving a car. Driving a car can be dangerous. Yeah, if you're a dumbass about it. So I mean, anything can be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of the athletes that come to you, it's probably safe to assume that some of these conditions are a result of things they've done in the past prior to CrossFit.
Yeah.
Because how long would you say like your average like CrossFit lifespan here, Brody, for your athletes?
Man, it's got to be over 2 years.
So it's relatively low.
I mean, kind of, sort of. I mean, I don't know how many. If we had 50% of our members are two years plus, and then another 30 are 3 to 4 years plus, that's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think what Mo's getting at is what I see when I have a training course, right? In our athlete training course, they come in and they could have played sports or whatever. When our very first day in the training course is a squat series. So air squat, front squat, back squat, overhead squat. And through this, we demonstrate the air squat. And people think it's simple, but I've seen some really messed up air squats. And I'm like, is that how you sit down and take a shit? I don't understand. Like, why are you on your toes? And so through these assessments, what I find and what Mo's kind of tapping on is you find people who come in that are doing CrossFit, but they lack the skills or the
mobility or just anything. Mechanics,
yes. They lack the mechanics to come in. So when they start coming into CrossFit, and we're constantly varied, right? So when they come into that, they're achieving positions that their body can achieve, but they lack the mobility or flexibility to do so, and they don't know that until we assess them, right? So that's what's good about our training courses. We get to see them move, see their movement patterns, make corrections. Like, I think one of the biggest things, like you tell someone to squat below 90 degrees, and I would say 60% of the people that I get in here, they can't even do that their first day. And if I have them take out a full step with their left and right leg wider to create more room for their hips to sit down into, they can achieve it. And why is that? Usually I think tight hip flexors is a major factor in that, because there's only so much room the hips can sit into. And as soon as we take that wider and give them more room, look, they easily hit 90 degrees.
So I kind of want to touch on something Bro just mentioned. He's talking about his athlete on-ramp, is what it's traditionally known as. As someone who's coming new to CrossFit, do you think there's value in an on-ramp or an orientation type process? It's
funny because before you even went into that, I was going to start mentioning that. I think with mentioning like the pre-existing condition thing, you're getting people that they're already coming to you with poor shoulder mobility. And then you have them come in and let's say that they do some shoulder presses and they injure their shoulder. It wasn't the presses. It was the fact that they came in lacking mobility. So that's where the biggest thing that you could do as a coach is screen that at the beginning and then know what to target when they start doing their work. Right? So you know, hey, you have a mobility deficit overhead. Let's target that with XYZ, this mobility, and then we'll be able to get to that overhead, as opposed to just throwing them right into it and then not knowing, can they go there, can they not, and then they get injured.
And there's a couple reasons why myself and Angie are the only two that do it out of all of our trainers. That
consistency.
I don't have if I tell our trainers a pathway, they will follow that pathway, and we'll be consistent across the board. We do it with all of our other classes. The reason is a couple reasons. One, we get to know all of our new members on a personal basis. But more importantly, we learn everything about them, how they move, what they can and cannot do, what their modifications need to be coming out of the training course, what mobility we want them to have them target, when they come in before the next training course class. Because the biggest one that we have coming out of the training course is really day one is overhead squat. You know how many people can't overhead squat a PVC pipe properly? I mean, it's astronomical.
But I think even more so onto that, how many people have ever done any kind of overhead squat?
Right, but if you think about it, we're talking about something that weighs ounces, okay? And we're doing an air squat. We're just holding it something that's a couple ounces above our head. And they may have the greatest air squat, but they can't overhead squat a PVC pipe because their shoulder, like he's saying, they're coming in.
Their shoulders are wrecked, yeah.
Say they come in, they're completely rounded forward, okay, and their pecs or whatever are really tight, and they have that big shoulder, inward pronation, whatever. And next time you tell them to go overhead, they can't. If they do, the PVC pipe's in front of their forehead, and it's not, directly up from the traps and slightly behind the head.
The other thing I think you do really well at here is, so let's say you take them through that screen and their mobility is good, then understanding proper loading through a period of time. So not just hammering them. I feel like you do really well at, if they need to like deload a little bit and then learn the skill with that load and then progress it steadily over time. And I think you do really well at that. And sometimes that might get lost at some gyms, and then you lead to what some people would call an overuse injury, and I would actually call an underuse injury, because they're just not trained enough. It's not that the load is that heavy, it's just that they're not prepared for it.
Right. I think that's something that's really cool. He said that not because he said something good about me, but that I think if you make these huge jumps, okay, let's say Eric hits a 25-pound PR in his squat, right? And then over the next 8 weeks, he squats maybe 5 times, okay, through that 8 weeks, and does very limited work at his new percentage. When he comes to do his next test, right, because say he missed a lot of the cycle, the next cycle, his body is definitely not going to be ready for that 25 pounds, because now his max is, say it was 300, which is much more than that, and he hit 325. So he's going to be targeting 335 for his next PR. There's no way his body's going to be ready, just like you said, and that is where you will get those severe knee cave, because the glutes haven't been developed, the hamstrings and haven't been developed. The core, even your core strength may be completely lacking to handle that load that you need to brace for. And what happens is when weight will find the body's weakest point
Mhm.
and then expose the
The
hell
weight
out
don't
of it.
lie. Yeah.
No, it will cause your knees to swim in,
Yep.
and you're freaking
Doing the Tootsie Roll. Like, yeah, everybody driving right now,
yeah.
you know exactly
I
what
was
I'm
about to
talking
do
about.
it.
Yeah.
And but no, he's right. I think if you don't develop that athlete's progression slowly, right, percentage based, weight,
Appropriate loading. Yeah.
reps as well, because you can't, powerlifting and CrossFit's a little bit different, where they work at a heavier sets,
Mhm.
right, for longer period of time. Right. So they may hit really heavy singles or really heavy doubles where we're hitting like 60, 70, 75, 80%. We're going for the volume of 25 reps over those 4 sets. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, if you don't load properly, your body will definitely not be ready.
So another issue that we talked about during the mobility. So another aspect of So something else we talked about during the mobility episode was talking about mobilizing before or after the workout. What are your thoughts on that?
So I used to really crush it after I would work out, and then I started looking at, not that everybody looks at research in their spare time, but I don't really have a life or many hobbies, so I do. So the research would show, and not that research means everything, but if you look at it, mobility, the best way to put it, mobility is a tool to give you a window of opportunity to access your full range of motion. So if I roll out my quad, my hip flexors, hamstrings, and I can perform a much more, I guess, fluid, easy, free-moving squat, and then I come back the next day, before I roll, I will be stiff again. So then you have to do the same thing over again.
Okay.
So that mobility allows you a period of time that your muscles feel a bit more loose. Essentially your nervous system is more calm, and it's just allowing you to go through motion. So doing it beforehand, then you're able to access good positions during your workout, and then afterwards, I may do some, but not a ton. So technically, if you mobilize afterwards and then you go to your car, you just made improvements in your mobility
to drive
a half an hour to then go home.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, the majority of mobility, and I know Brody does a lot of that here, is done beforehand. And then your long-term changes in mobility. So like, let's say you have trouble squatting, you mobilize a little bit, rolling, whatever it may be, and then you perform full depth, like appropriate, good quality squats. That is what's going to lead to long-term mobility, to you being able to squat more, is squatting better, more.
So how much time would you, I know there's an ideal state, like, probably you want your athletes to mobilize like 30 minutes before a workout, but what's that sweet spot where you're going to get the benefit of mobilization to go into that particular workout?
This is a good topic too, because there's controversy in this.
Oh,
too.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Stretching before you work out,
and how long
prior, and how long before you should do mobility, because they say it turns your muscles off. Your body you can actually start becoming tired.
That's fair.
I don't know what it releases, but
yeah. So there's a big thing here too, and they've done a ton of research on this. So you're talking static stretching, so propping your hamstring up, stretching it out for 30 seconds.
The stuff we did in junior high school PE.
Yeah, bingo.
Okay.
Yeah. But nobody gets injured anyway because you're like Gumby. So anyway, so you do a hamstring stretch or something like that, and then they'll have you. They have in research, they'll have them do a vertical jump, and they'll show that their vertical jump height is decreased. So then people will say, oh my God, there's a serious decrease in your muscle output. So then you can't static stretch before you work out. So then they realize, is that true? So if you think about it though, most people static stretch, if they do, and then they'll go into more of a dynamic active type of warm up.
Dynamic meaning?
Whether it's like lunges or like walking, whatever, soldiers, something just like an active type dynamic movement. Okay. If that makes sense.
So kind of getting your heart rate up while doing some
increasing
mobilization.
Blood flow.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff like that. More of like, just an active type movement as opposed to a static hold for 30 seconds.
Okay.
And if you do that, then it actually negates the decrease in power that you would have lost. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then it would decrease. It takes away the decrement or the decrease in your loss of power output.
Okay.
Anyway, so basically, if you do that, then you're fine static stretching, go to dynamic, and then go into your workout.
Okay. So in an ideal state, like how would you recommend doing that?
I've actually cut out most of static, but if you do static, I would go static, or I would do like foam rolling mobility as far as like lacrosse ball, and then static stretching, and then dynamic, and then into like your movement prep activities. So you're going more from a like passive modality where you're just laying there on the foam roller or moving, and then you're graded, like kind of graded going up towards more active into your workout.
And how soon prior to the workout beginning would you recommend, in your opinion?
I would say within 30 minutes.
Okay.
But that's different for everybody too. You'll have people that, and everybody's different, and this is why it's good to not just go through the motions with your mobility. If you get the same results from 30 minutes of mobility as you do from 10, then I would recommend just doing 10 minutes of mobility. It's like taking 2 aspirin or taking 10. If 2 takes the headache away, why would you want to take 10?
Okay, that's fair.
And that's paying attention to your body.
Okay. And I never really appreciated all this until I went to that USAW course and they had us lifting an empty barbell for about 4 hours. And I was like, I didn't know you get tired from just doing mobility.
Yeah, what he said was very key, I think. Listening to your body, I think, from what I've noticed and seen is, through the mobility episode, I talked about I've tried everything. I've tried static, I've tried active, I've tried mobility, then I've tried combining the two. I'm trying to find, is there a thing that works for everybody?
Yeah, what's the magic pill?
Well, and that's the thing is like I'm trying to find out what works for everybody because it's not just me. I know what works for me because I know my body. I need to know what happens.
Because you're old man mobility.
Grandpa mobility, I know. What the heck? And but I want to know what works for the majority. So I would run our classes through it as a trial, so I have a bigger sample size. And what I found through that is there's not one magic pill for everybody. But what I can do, and what I found that I truly believe in, is exactly what he just said: is mobility, stretching, active warm up, get ready for your strength portion. And I found that when you do that, I've seen people when they're in their static stretch, they're like, or when they're doing mobility, they have a lot of issues with their tissue.
Issues with the tissue.
Yeah, and
that's actually a coin term.
Is it?
Yeah, in PT. It's legit. You're way ahead of the game.
Damn, dude. OG. No. Anyways, when I see people doing mobility, I see that a lot of people are having some really tight spots, really a lot of soreness. And then when we go into the static portion, okay, and through that tightness of soreness, they come in and they say, "Hey, bro, when I squat, it hurts out on the outside part of my quad." Okay, cool. This is what I recommend. When they do that, like he said, it's giving them a window of opportunity. Then we go into a stretching portion to elongate that tissue. Because I don't know. I always say I'm not a doctor. I'm not. But in case you didn't know. And but I believe in breaking up the tissue and then trying to elongate it. That's what I go by. So once we do those two things and we go into an active warm up and get the blood flow, now they're able to achieve a position that they were not able to achieve prior to starting that process. And in return, their risk of injury gets decreased by a lot. I don't even know the percentage, right? And then their sets are better. They're getting stronger because they can achieve and hold a position through the entire lift. They're activating the right muscles, because that's what people don't understand is if I tell you to squat, right, like we've talked about, your body will squat no matter how messed up your mechanics are. You will squat down, okay? But is it safe? No, it's not safe. And when we start getting into heavier loads, we know that when we're in our 80% plus, if we're not spot on technique wise, we pay for it, and that's where that injury can occur.
The nagging pains and all that stuff.
That's what happens. It's your 80 to 85%, and it's not always a 1 rep. Everybody always thinks you get hurt on a 1 rep. I've seen more people tweak something on their 80, 85% because it's at a higher set number, right? And they're now getting injured because they did not take the proper precautions leading into it.
With CrossFitters specifically, do you see any area that we stress out more than others?
Shoulder, number one. So it would be shoulder, followed closely, kind of closely by knee, and then a distant third would be low back. And that's pretty much, if you listen to any of like the PTs that work with CrossFit athletes across the nation, that would be their top 3. Shoulders number 1, then knees, then low back. So
you hear that, guys? Mobilize those shoulders.
Well, hold on. It's not just mobility. It's not. I think we're not talking about mobility here.
Oh, okay. So what are we talking about here?
Well, I'd say some of it is, but I think he can really touch on what a major issue that we found since he. So if you don't know this, Eric walked into our gym, and I thought he was dropping in for a CrossFit class. And he was just asking like about working. He just randomly dropped in here, and then that's how all this actually occurred.
You're like, oh, you don't want to work out?
He's like, I'm a powerlifter, bro. No, I'm kidding. And no, but that's kind of how this all transferred, and it's been pretty cool to. This is something I've really wanted about 2.5 years ago, to have someone that I could have access to. I don't mean in a weird way, but that could come in and I could directly give them athletes that I know that I could not help.
Okay.
Right. And then him be here for appointments. And I thought it was really cool. But one thing he's really incorporated almost instantly into us, it wasn't the mobility, because we do a ton of that. It was what? Stability.
Okay. Oh, in the kettlebell thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So the best example I can give is, so if you have shoulder pain, and you just you just mobilize, it never gets better. You may be going about the right, I guess you're addressing the right area, but with the wrong solution.
Okay.
So mobility, stability are usually on two different ends of the spectrum. Your super mobile people would be, let's take like a 12-year-old female gymnast. They're going to have a ton of mobility and they have really poor stability.
Okay.
Their joints, everything is just super lax. You go on the opposite end of the spectrum, not to pick out 60-year-old males, but your 60-year-old male is going to have a lot of stability, typically, but no mobility.
Okay.
You want an even, nice mix, especially for CrossFit, where you're doing so many different movements. You need stability through the movement, but you have to have mobility to access end ranges of motion in things like an overhead squat. So with that, if I see a lot of, like let's say I have a 25-year-old female who has shoulder pain overhead, usually your 25-year-old females are pretty mobile. So you can take them and do mobility testing overhead and they're totally fine. So why do they have shoulder pain then? If everything from thoracic, everything is fine mobility, a lot of times it's stability.
Okay.
So if you're trying to hold weight overhead, your shoulder has to be stable in the joint. Otherwise, it's going to get a little bit of extra movement. Things are going to start hitting that shouldn't be hitting. And then you have pain, not as a result of mobility.
So for the stability specifically, what are some things we can do to overcome that lack of stability?
So the best way to look at it is if, and there are a bunch of different ones, most of them involve kettlebells, but the concept is if you want your shoulder, your rotator cuff, everything, all the muscles inside of your shoulder to start making their own stability, you have to create instability outside with an implement. So a dumbbell, kettlebell, whatever. So by that, I mean, let's say that you put a kettlebell upside down and are doing shoulder press with it. The way that the kettlebell is unstable in your hand, naturally your rotator cuff and all the shoulder muscles have to stabilize your shoulder in order to keep it from falling over.
So when you say upside down, you mean like grab the handle, invert it overhead, okay, and just holding that and stabilizing.
Yep. So like a bottoms up. So I guess if I had to pick three, like a bottoms up kettlebell, like an overhead carry, you could do like a half Turkish get up, bottoms up. You can do shoulder presses, bottoms up. So just find a way to add instability through a kettlebell and then work on like an overhead position. So if you want to get more stable in your overhead position, work on your overhead position with instability training.
Nice. And I tell you, it's one of those things, when he said this, it's one of those things like, man, I'm so stupid. Like, why didn't I even think? I knew about stability, but I never.
Simple, but it's simple, but not something you've just ever implemented.
I've never, on a regular basis, right? And I think that's where I look at myself. I'm like, man, you're so dumb. Like, why would you not do that when you know stability is a major factor? Hell, we have crossover symmetry, but like, I didn't think out beyond that, right? I didn't think. I guess that can help with stability. It can strengthen your rotator muscles as well. But I never thought of that, and just like it's like when you see someone that invent something and they make millions of dollars, and you're like, dude, I thought of that 15 years ago.
I thought of the pooper scooper when I was 12 years
right?
old. Yeah,
and that's kind of like how this is. I don't get money for it, but what I do get out of it is my athletes are now going to be more stable in certain positions, because I think stability in CrossFit is, in my opinion, what causes CrossFit injuries. It's not overuse per se. I see it more as we're at a fatigue state, we're at the end of a workout, we're lacking stability.
Okay.
And then we're hitting a full snatch and it's our last couple, because when I typically see people injured, it's at the very end, not the beginning, at the very end of the workout. And it's because we're not stable in a fatigue state and we kind of become laxed. Okay. And instead of our body being able to respond and hold that out of habit, it can't, because it's an unstable platform.
I know we stated it earlier in the show, but you shouldn't wait till you get injured to go see a PT, right?
Yeah, I would agree. That's
and why is that?
I I feel like if you can address your movement issues, like if you have certain spots with immobility, if you can address those prior to the issue coming up, then you would essentially like get to where you don't even face the issue. It's like waiting on
preventative maintenance.
Yeah, it's like waiting to put oil in your car till it starts smoking. Like nobody ever does that, but nobody would ever think to like see somebody about maybe I have some movement issues and need a screen prior to hurting. We usually hurt and then we go.
Okay.
Which
That's
is
fair.
crazy, right? I mean, it definitely should be the opposite. And I think that's where the PT scene has kind of jumped into the CrossFit scene is people are seeing the benefits of the preventative things so they can train more often, more frequently.
More uptime.
That's because volume is not everything. Proper volume is everything. And that's where people get lost. Like, oh, I got up my volume so I can go to regionals. Bro, you can up your volume by 10,000. You're not going to go because what you're doing is completely wrong.
It's wrong. Yeah.
It's wrong. Wrong is wrong, Mo. Like, I don't know how. Is that
whether
simple?
it's 1 rep or 50 reps? It's wrong.
It is wrong. Like, I was wanting to really dig into his brain because I don't think it's as much research and stuff reading I've done on mobility, flexibility, all that stuff. One thing that I have never even seen talked about is the neurological side of stability. Okay. And I would love for him to kind of touch on that.
All right. So the nervous system essentially controls everything. And not that the average person gives a shit about the nervous system, but
except when they're hot or cold.
No, you will when it happens.
Yeah.
So a big thing with that is, let's say you have somebody who was like, let's take a herniated disc in your low back, for example. And they'll say that they come in and they still have low back pain. And I'll say, well, how long has it been? It's been 2 years. All right. If you look at the research, again, in 12 months or so, that disc should actually scar over. So why are you still having pain? There's got to be something else going on, like either a movement or the fact that a lot of times what can happen is the body likes to continue whatever it's been doing. So if you've had pain signals going up to your brain for 12 months saying that every time I bend over, it's painful. Let's say you even have surgery then on the disc, or it's healed, pretty soon your body associates bending over with pain, regardless of whether there's actually anything threatening your body or not. So part of it is actually working on, I guess, removing your body's sensation of pain or the fear of pain by performing active movements.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So you almost have to reverse that cycle. So, and then you can even have pain with the anticipation of movement. So they've done looking at that too. So if they normally have pain when they bend over, they'll actually see that they have a little bit of increased pain with the anticipation of bending over. Okay. So that's where even like PT can come in handy with certain things, but then also just teaching like proper movements again and proper movement quality.
And I want to back that up before we push on. I still want to talk about this because I think it's something that I've never heard of. He just said, in order to get something from hurting, you must perform a movement that you think is going to hurt it. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's, to me,
that sounds counterintuitive.
It's counterintuitive. And I think that's what people, well, it hurts when I squat. Well, he may give you things to do that involve squatting. And in return, what it's going to do, it's going to tell your body's okay to squat, your brain that it's okay to squat because it is okay to squat. But you have to convince your body. You have to convince your brain that you're okay to squat, and you don't want to do that because it hurts the squat technically.
Yeah, and so not obviously if your rotator cuff is just completely shredded, you can't really like overcome that. It's just gone. But yeah, in some instances, you need to retrain your body to not be threatened in certain positions. So yeah, like with the herniated disc example, if it's been that long, you actually need to start working into things that you think are going to be painful and gradually progress into it. Don't just like hammer through, but you need to start to progress into those positions. You get there, your body realizes, okay, all right, shit, nothing's wrong here. Mm-hmm. So then you can go even further.
I'm not going to die.
You can go even further, which is the same essentially with like stretching. Mm-hmm. If you stretch, your body senses there's a big threat. It tightens. It says that muscle's tight, and then you get the stretch longer, and your body says, okay, nothing's wrong. And then it allows you to stretch even further. Mm. So the neurological aspect of it, of a lot that we do, is huge.
It was crazy because, and I'll use me as an example and have another athlete of ours that I can use. So I kind of injured myself 2 weeks. When was that?
No,
last weekend?
3 weeks ago.
No.
Yeah, at Endeavor. Yeah.
Is that 3 weeks?
Yeah.
No.
Almost. It's Wednesday, dude.
What?
It's almost 3 weeks ago.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It was our last competition. 2
No,
weeks ago.
Because
Not even been 2 weeks.
last week you didn't have anything. The week before that was Clash on the Concrete. Oh wait, no, you're
Yeah.
right. It's 2 weeks because it was after Clash on the Concrete.
It was what? The 30th.
Yeah, not
2
even
weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So less than 2 weeks. Anyways, so just kidding. So a couple weeks ago when I was at Endeavor competing, I was doing a pretty basic workout, and then on a handstand hold, my arm completely went numb and gave out. And then I would go to do a pull up. My sensation going all the way down my arm, my fingertips were completely numb. Come to find out, it was my brachial plexus nerve. Right?
Yeah, all the bundles of nerves that go out of your spinal cord to the arm.
So all them bitches were pissed off. So in all honesty, we've had some needling. He's pulled out every kind of trick in his book the last couple weeks. I compete again this weekend, and including rest, which he doesn't like to prescribe, but it was something that he said, don't use your shoulder. Let's see if the nerves can kind of reset.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were working yesterday together, and he put me through a series of things. And then the last thing he did, he put me through a neurological test where it was very simple. Like I would stand with my shoulder towards the wall, extend my arm, and I had to put my hand flat against the wall in a straight line. And I couldn't even put my palm onto the wall without my fingers going numb, which is nuts, right? And my other arm, I could put my palm against the wall and completely open up. Like think of a pec stretch. And that's what you're supposed to achieve. I couldn't even put my palm on the wall without my fingers going numb. So he gave me a couple things to try. So yesterday before we worked out, this is literally an hour and a half after we worked together. I'd go through the series. Last thing I'd do was some like a kettlebell. It's not a Turkish get up. What would you call that? We rotate the
It's
side.
like rolling from your back to your side with the kettlebell,
Okay.
like in an arm bar.
So I was rolling I had a kettlebell inverted overhead, single arm. I'd roll from my back completely to my side and work some stability things. And I went through 3 rounds of this. And the first 2 rounds, my left arm, and this is only with the 26-pound kettlebell, my left arm was completely going left and right, swaying quite a bit. And I'd go to my right arm, then went back to my left arm for the 3rd round. It literally, I was telling him, it was like a light switch flipped. And the kettlebell did not move. And prior to this, every single thing in my shoulder had hurt, from all my rotators, my pec, my trap, my scalenes, my SCM, everything was jacked up. And then all of a sudden, because I showed that I'm okay, and I showed my mind that I'm okay, a switch flipped and I had complete stability. And I walked in today and I was able to put my palm completely against the wall and turn like I was supposed to. So I think it's pretty crazy the impact you can have on your body by training in a position that they think is dangerous. And it shows that it's not dangerous, and it fixes it. It literally, that's all it was.
Yeah.
Freaking nuts. If that don't blow your mind, then I don't know what the hell. Maybe I'm a geek, but shit, that was crazy to me.
And lastly, before we wrap things up, this is a special question from Brody.
I wrote out the show notes,
Yeah.
guys. Sorry.
What is your opinion on telling a patient not to work out because they have injured themselves?
Did you ask me? Did I say that you should punch me in the face?
He did.
I said, he asked me about that in kind of roundabout way. And I said, and I wasn't lying. I said, if I ever tell one of your athletes that, you should just punch me in the face. I just,
we became best friends right at that point in time, basically.
Yeah. So, if you have shoulder pain, I would say, first off, you have like 90% of your other body that you can use, which is kind of important. And then there's a ton of stuff that you should do for the shoulder still. Unless your shoulder is literally falling off, there are tons of different things that you can do with it. So I guess that's the short of it. That kind of pisses me off.
There's other things you can do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You go to the doctor and they usually just say like, oh, well, you just shouldn't do anything. Well, there are like 95% of things I can still do.
Right. I mean, I think in worst case scenario, if you cannot use your arm for a legitimate reason, you can still squat.
You can still squat. Yep.
Right. Or if, for like he's saying, majority of the people, you can still do a lot with your arm. It may not be what you want to do, right? But you may
Which
not
can be a problem for some of us.
Yeah, you may not want to do upside down kettlebells at a 13-pound kettlebell. But if that's what it's going to take, then what are you bitching about? And I think that's something he did tie into CrossFitters is, without a doubt, CrossFitters want to work out, okay? And they want to go to a PT or chiropractic or whatever. They want to go in with an issue, that they have. They want it fixed because they want to work out that day.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it can't happen, but sometimes it can. They'll do anything they can to get back to where they can work out and do movement. They may hate snatches, Mo. They may hate snatches with a passion, but when they can't snatch, they're pissed. I want to snatch now. But then they'll do anything to get back to snatching.
So, Eric, is that where some of the compliance comes from, you think? Because the willingness, they want to get back on the floor?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Interesting. Okay. Now, the moment of truth. Whenever we have a guest on here, we like to subject them to 3 rounds for time. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and you just answer them as best you can.
Don't mess them up.
Oh,
No.
Ready?
Not you. Eric.
First question. What's something that keeps you up at night? What are fears or concerns that you have?
Not gonna have enough money to pay my bills.
It's reasonable.
Is that legit?
That's legit. That's totally legit. Yeah, absolutely.
That I mean, I sleep fine though.
Yeah.
But that might be it.
Yeah. I got you, bro.
Yeah.
When you're gone, what's something you want to be remembered for?
Helping people.
Okay. And lastly, what is something in the world you would change? This is usually the one that stumps people.
It is.
Yeah. Everybody hesitates usually.
Even got Stu, and Stu don't stumble.
Yeah,
much.
Stu don't stumble much, yeah.
I don't know. The first one I would go to is the lack of common sense. I guess if I'm just going I'll just go with our country currently.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
The lack of
hey, this is your answer, man.
the lack of common sense that people use today. I'll leave people to interpret that however they wish.
That's fair. And
if you need help on interpreting that, just hit me up. I got you.
He knows what I mean.
And because we are the One More Rep podcast, we also have one extra bonus question. What is a special talent or a superpower that you have that no one knows about?
Pretty much what. So in college, I learned how to bite into beer cans and shotgun them. So I smash it over my head and then I bite into it.
There you go.
Actually, I went to the dentist and they said that my front tooth was cracked and they asked if I'd had repeated trauma to my face.
Okay.
It's true.
Hey.
Yeah, I have the crack. So
that's the best one we got yet.
That is the best one we've had so far.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, is there anything else you want to tell our folks? Like, where can they find you on social media or physically, or if they want to get a hold of you? How can they get your assistance?
Jenna, would you like to answer this one?
Jen will give you my address. So I'm on Facebook at Advanced Therapy and Performance, and then Instagram Advanced Therapy and Performance, and then my website is MiamiValleyPhysio.com.
All right,
so those are the best places.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you joining us here.
Like his page, hit him up.
Yeah, like his page, hit him up. Also, don't forget that call to action. Go to one of your old favorite episodes, tag one of your friends, family members with the hashtag OMRFam, and also Brody's favorite hashtag World Domination.
We're taking over, baby.
This has been the One More Rep podcast. I'm Mo and I'm out.
Later.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the One More Rep podcast. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at One More Rep podcast, or on Twitter at Can I Get One More, or shoot us an email at canigetonmore@gmail.com. Thank you, Jenna. So sweet.
Can I get a refill?
After she already walked back up.
She's fit. She's our fittest female.
This is true. You are kind of jacked. In case no one's ever told you, you are kind of a badass.
She was trying to convince Minda last night that she's fat.
Jeez. Oh, she's 7% today.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally letting yourself go, dude.
Yeah, I got 7%.
I got 7% muscle.